Hello everyone! Now you will hear a brief summary of the film I Am David. Enjoy watching. The year is 1952. 12-year-old David has spent his entire conscious life in a Bulgarian labor camp. Another prisoner, Johan, gave David the task of escaping from the camp, reaching Denmark, and delivering an extremely important letter to a certain person. Following his instructions, the boy moves stealthily between the barracks. Finally, he reaches the wall of electrified barbed wire. After the signal, he will have only 30 seconds before the electricity is turned back on. David miraculously managed to overcome the obstacle and suddenly heard the guards shouting. But it was just the sentries arguing about something in the watchtower. However, the commotion attracted the attention of the head of security. At the end of the field, a bag was hidden. There, David found soap, a folding knife, and a compass. He should travel only at night and head strictly south until he reaches the Greek city of Thessaloniki. The boy jumped into a truck, where he saw two other escapees who were also trying to break free from this socialist paradise. David remembered the hard days when he worked all day long in the quarry. Suddenly the truck stopped and was searched by soldiers. When the two men were pulled outside, David jumped out and rolled down the slope. Once again he was forced to run on foot. Fortunately, the border with Greece was already nearby, but it was heavily guarded. To get through yet another fence, David had to dig a tunnel underneath. The border guard spotted the intruder, but didn't manage to catch him. In Thessaloniki, David would have to find a ship that was heading to Italy. At dawn, David found one and quietly climbed aboard using a rope. After that, he hid in the hold. At night, David lit a match and looked at the envelope with a very important message. Only in his dreams does he remember his mother's face, which he last saw when he was very little. In his dream, Johan came to him. The man reassures the boy that he will manage. The bad people won't find him.
But what am I looking for? What will I find in Denmark? Freedom.
In the morning, the boy was woken up by an Italian sailor. Together with David, there were prisoners from all over Europe in the camp, so he was able to understand the mustached man's words. Clever David bargained for the sailor's silence in exchange for a folding knife. But it's important that no one notices him, so at night Roberto lowered the boy into the water not far from the port. All David could do was pray and hope that the current would really carry him to shore, just as Roberto had promised. Today the boy was lucky again. He has to rely on his compass and keep heading north until he reaches Denmark. Even far from the camp, David can't shake his anxiety. He ended up there because his parents fought against the communists in Bulgaria. Imprisonment was so unbearable that he didn't even want to live. Fortunately, Johan convinced his young friend that life outside the camp walls was completely different. All the boy had seen before was barbed wire, stones, and exhausted people. In Italy, everything is so beautiful and fragrant like freshly baked rolls. It's true that David doesn't have any money to buy them, but the kind baker promised to give him a loaf if the boy would smile. Antonio prays to Saint Elizabeth. She looks after everyone who needs help. Antonio gave David a card with the saint on it. Unfortunately, the kind man betrayed David and invited two policemen into the bakery so they could ask the boy a few questions. The man meant well, but he scared the kid and David took off running again. David ran through the forest until he tumbled down a hill and crashed into a tree. Unfortunately, the compass broke, so the hungry boy now doesn't even know which direction he should go. He began to pray to Saint Elizabeth, asking her to help him find a way out of the forest and reach Denmark. Gathering his thoughts, David climbed to the top of a tall tree and saw a field ahead.
You must not let yourself be seen. If you are seen, you must blend in with the crowd.
How can I learn to smile? David wondered. As if his troubles weren't enough, a guard dog started chasing David since the boy had accidentally wandered into someone else's vineyard, but the owner didn't get angry at him. The woman handed David a basket of wine so he could take the bottles to the neighboring farm. She even paid him 2 lira. There were many cars parked at the farm. People were gathering to celebrate something, but it would be impossible without wine.
I don't want some strange boy hanging around at my party. Hey, get out of here!
There was plenty of food on the tables, but not a single bite made it into David's mouth. The boy picked up a shard of mirror to practice his smile.
What's wrong with you? Do you need to use the bathroom?
David wanted to buy half the shop with his 2 lira, but the shopkeeper just laughed at him and chased the ragged boy away. Seeing a mother with her son, David remembered how he had been separated from his own mother. In the middle of the road, the boy met an American couple. They had run out of gas, and David promised to run to the gas station for them. That way he got to ride a moped and at the same time earned a decent wad of cash, which he finally used to buy himself some food. On the way, David caught sight of a luxurious mansion. He was immediately attacked by an obnoxious boy who decided that David was a thief. The little scoundrel almost snatched his letter away. Fortunately, David managed to fight him off. He still used the bar of soap he had from the camp, but now, in anger, he threw it away. It was David who wanted to escape from the camp. Johann was even afraid to think about it. A cry for help distracted the boy from his memories. Not far away, a barn was on fire, and inside, a teenage girl with her hands tied was suffocating from the smoke. A children's game had gotten out of control. David saved the girl and lost consciousness. The next time he woke up, he was in a clean bed.
You got a little burned, but not badly. Me too, see?
Maria thanked her rescuer because she could have died. Just now, for the first time in many years, David smiled. Maybe he fell in love with her, Maria guessed. Maria's mother is trying to find out where this boy came from. His parents are probably very worried. If he ran away from home, he can stay here for a few days. David had never been in such a luxurious place before. By the way, his offender lives here too.
I just wanted to apologize. I didn't mean to hit you yesterday.
Carlo asked the guests not to tell their parents about their fight yesterday. Downstairs, a lavish table was set. The whole large family had gathered around it, and servants stood nearby. The boy was seated next to Maria. At the first opportunity, she took his hand. David has no idea how to use a knife and fork, and there is so much delicious food on the plates. David also wishes he had such a close-knit family as Maria's, and she doesn't even suspect how many bad and malicious people there are in the world. The girl showed the guests the library. There was also a globe there. That's how David learned that there were still two countries, Switzerland and Austria, separating him from Denmark. Maria's parents entered the study and asked their daughter to leave. They needed to learn more about their guest. David lied to the couple, saying that he had gotten separated from a traveling circus. Giovanni saw through him immediately and wanted to approach. David was very frightened. In the camp, in such a situation, he would have been beaten right away. Giovanni reassured the boy that nothing would threaten him here. Lying in the bathtub, David remembered how he had stolen that soap from the security chief's office. All the prisoners were lined up for a search. The thief was to be executed. At the last moment, Johann took the soap from his young friend and showed it to the guard. That very second, Johann was executed. At night, David decided that he had to continue on his journey. He left the card with Saint Elizabeth of Mary, for he felt he didn't deserve anything good. The sad boy once again headed north, passing through fields and towns. Unfortunately, he was unlucky enough to end up between a group of communists and the police who had come to break up the rally. The officer thought it was the boy who had thrown a stone at his back, so he grabbed David and threw him into the car. For the first time since his escape, he found himself locked up again. During the scuffle, the seal on the envelope was broken. Inside, David found not some secret message, but his own documents. The boy decided it was too soon to give up, so he used his bandage to pull the handle and escape from the car. The car was parked in a narrow alley, so the policeman couldn't catch him. Incredibly, David once again ran into the sailor Roberto, who was driving a truck. He was kicked off the ship when he was caught with a crate of stolen tomatoes. Of course, he wouldn't take the boy all the way to Denmark, but he would get him to Milan.
Good luck, my friend. Best of luck to you. Say hello to Denmark for me.
By the lake, David met a woman who was painting a landscape. Sophie wanted to paint David's portrait as well. The boy poses very well, he can sit still for a long time, and he's always quiet. But his eyes are too serious, just like his whole face. The woman realized that David had been through a lot in his short life. It turned out that Sophie lived in Switzerland, and she agreed to take the young model with her. Among the drawings, David found portraits of some boy in the car. Our hero got scared when he saw the border guards, but Sophie promised there would be no problems. The woman lied, saying that David was her grandson and that she had forgotten his documents at home.
All he wants is to sneak into your country, overthrow the government, and then immediately go back.
The charming old lady won over the border guards, and they allowed David to enter Switzerland. Sophie lives in a small house surrounded by mountains. All the walls are covered with paintings, and now a new one has joined them, a portrait of a sad boy. After a long time, David was finally able to eat his fill again. Sophie showed him her locket, which held a photograph of the boy from the portrait. That is her son, Peter. Shortly after that picture was taken, he died of pneumonia. For the first time in his life, David held a cat in his arms. It was so soft and for some reason kept vibrating all the time. David honestly admitted that he doesn't live anywhere. Sophie suggested he spend the night here, but for some reason the boy panicked and asked her not to give him away.
Not give you away to whom? To them. To him? To anyone.
Sophie assured David that he was safe here and tucked him in, just like a mother would when he was little. In the morning, they went out for a walk. If Johan told David not to trust anyone, Sophie tries to convince the boy that there are far more good people in the world than bad ones. He shouldn't be afraid to make friends and trust them. Sophie stopped by her friend's place and left David alone so he could walk around the neighborhood. The boy wandered into a church, and almost immediately after him, a policeman entered, making David's heart sink. But he remembered Sophie's words, so he greeted the policeman. David remembered that the guard had seen the soap in his hands, but until the very end, he didn't want to give the boy away. He and Johan exchanged glances, and only when the man took the soap did the guard draw his pistol from its holster. We find out that it wasn't Johan who gave David the letter and prepared his escape. It was the guard who decided to save the boy's life, to show him that there is a world beyond the camp walls. The man regrets what happened to his friend. In the library, David noticed a book he had seen before. This book was written by a woman who had lost her husband and son in Bulgaria. She managed to escape herself because one of the guards was in love with her. He helped her flee to Denmark with forged documents. David saw a photograph of his mother and immediately told Sophie his story. Together, they ran to the police station. And so a few days later, David was already boarding a plane bound for Denmark. The boy looked at Sophie one more time and boarded the plane. He constantly remembers Johan, who convinced him to keep living and to hope for the best. At the airport, David was met by his mother.
I'm David. I know David.